whenever we can start to recognize that wholeness and that sameness within each other, it really creates this availability to go deep with one another, to really grow your relationship safety and connection. You're seeing and accepting all of the other person.
Do you know in your bones that you're meant for a life that feels free and expansive? Are you ready for a conscious relationship that honors every facet of who you are as a woman, partner, mama, professional, and everything in between? If so, you're in the right place. I'm Kaya Dawn, a conscious relationship and shadow work guide who helps high achieving, spiritual minded women trust their body's wisdom and create partnerships where they feel just as supported as they are supportive. Lace up those sneakers, babe, and let's go on a hot girl walk together to dish about what it means to be the woman behind it all. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I recently have challenged myself to go live on Instagram for 30 days straight. And today's episode is the inception of that. And I wanted to do this because I really want to be more consistent in showing up online and sharing about the things that I'm obsessed with, which have everything to do with relationships, energetics, spirituality, devotion, sacred intimacy, shadow work, and anything and everything in between that falls under those umbrellas. And so I thought this would be a super fun way to kind of knock out multiple birds with one stone because I'm repurposing these Instagram lives as podcast episodes. And for this first episode today, I'm going to be diving into the 4 most influential teachers in my journey thus far. And I've been doing personal development, psychology, spirituality work for a really long time. And I believe these teachers came into my life at the perfect time, even though I did a lot of work with Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins and Brene Brown and Dr. Joe Dispenza and so many teachers prior. But really, the culmination of coming into these 4 teachers' works has really set themselves apart. Even though Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, all of those previous teachers that I mentioned have been influential teachers in my journey 1,000,000%, and I love their work. But the teachers I'm going to be breaking down today really take it to the next level, in my opinion. And so I think you're really going to get a lot out of this episode. If you are looking to create more depth and safety and connection in your relationship, really understand yourself on deeper levels, and understand your partner on a deeper level, then you're really going to love this episode. So without any further ado, let's dive in.
Hey, friends. Hello, hello. I'm going to give a couple of minutes or just maybe a minute for people to pop on live. But I'm really excited about today's conversation because I'm going to be sharing about the 4 most influential teachers and also modalities that have completely informed the way that I perceive the world, show up in my relationships, teach in my coaching containers, and even just share in conversations that I have with friends. I don't necessarily speak into things always specifically, but that's why I wanted to do this live in this podcast episode today. So I'm live on my Instagram community. Thank you, everyone, popping on. And just really bring this information to your awareness as well, because these aspects have been super pivotal in my development, my process, my relationship experience, and everything from there. And my conversation around this today is going to be rooted more on intimate relationships, but this can also be applied to any relationship, of course. Parenting, your relationship with your parents, with your body, with money, with siblings, with community members, with friends, anything and everyone. And so I'm super excited about this conversation today. I have created this bullseye looking diagram that I'm going to be filling in as we go. In regard to the video, it might be mirrored backwards. I'm not quite sure. We'll see how it turns out. But I do just want to go ahead and start to dive into this conversation and fill this in as we go. And it's going to be fun. So let me get my mic turned around just real quick and we'll get going. Maybe this will be better so it's not just like straight up in my face. Okay. So The four teachers that are most transformative for me are going to be John Wineland, David Dieta, the Gene Keys, which is Richard Rudd, and then Human Design, which is Ra Aruhu. And I made a post this last week about the five most influential teachers who have made a big impact on me. And the fifth one that I shared in that post was Marianne Williamson. And she says in her book, A Return to Love, that there are three different types of relationships that we encounter in our life. One is more of a superficial one, kind of short lived. Maybe you meet someone on an elevator, have some kind of connection, even if it's just an eye connection, or maybe you have a small conversation or whatnot, and people just come in your life and then they exit out. That's the first part. The second part is where you have more of a deeper relationship to where it's more of a long term interaction, commitment experience, but then that relationship ends and then it exits your life and you take what you need to learn from that relationship. And then the third type of relationship is a more long-standing one, a lifelong commitment to this relationship. And so I'm not including her in this because one, I let my friend borrow that book and I'm just kind of gathering this information based on what I remember, but I wasn't able to reference it back again. And so I did want to give her credit where her credit is due in my own process and awareness of relationship energetics and depth and meaning to that. But she's not included in this more expansive conversation. And we're going to keep it to the four that I mentioned before, which is John Wineland, David Dieta, Gene Keys, and Human Design, and the two gentlemen that created those systems. So let's go ahead and start today then. So I actually want to start with, let's actually do the gene keys, okay? And so on my diagram, I'm going to start to fill this in around the edge and write gene keys on the outer rim, okay? And so I'm going to write all four on the outer circle, but whenever we go into the center of this bullseye, I'm going to be at the center of this bullseye. And so can you, right? So if you were to create your own diagram like I am, you would put me or potentially your name. I'm just going to put me in the center of this bullseye, but I'm also going to fill in that bullseye my perspective of world, of relationships, of energetics, awareness. Perspective and awareness are a little bit different to me. They have a different energetic meaning. So I'm going to put both of them here. You might think those are the same. That's totally fine. But perspective and awareness. And then also service. This is the way that I serve myself, my partner, my family, the clients that I work with, my friends, all the other relationships. So I put that in the very center of this bullseye. So let's keep going with the gene keys here. So with all of these four modalities, there's going to be three layers to each of them. And so within the gene key system, it operates in a way of frequencies. And the frequencies have to do with the shadow at the lowest frequency, like low vibe, the gift at that mid level of frequency, and the siddhi at the highest frequency. And siddhi is a Sanskrit word that means enlightenment or atonement. And as you can see with frequencies, we're talking about vibes, right? Low vibe, higher vibes. And so let's go ahead and start to talk about the shadow frequency. And we're going to start by filling in my bullseye diagram by putting shadow in that first level right there. And so at the shadow frequency, this has so much to do with victimization patterns, the way that you might feel blame, shame, resentment of yourself, of other people. You might experience judgment in this frequency, frustration, just any kind of lower frequency vibe. Woe is me. Why is this happening? Everything sucks. The economy's terrible. You kind of like blame or project your negative emotions or feelings or projections or perceptions or life experiences onto something else. And you also might project that back towards yourself with like self deprecating thoughts or beliefs or habits or patterns or addictions. but that is the essence of the shadow frequency. It's very self-focused and it has a lower vibration in which you're operating in, which creates physical sensations within your body, which then have a ripple effect outside of you in addition to that. However, every shadow contains a gift. At least that's a message that the Gene Keys promotes all the time. And I truly believe that through and through. It's like the negative experiences and feelings, sensations, beliefs, stories that we have in our life are really trying to lend us towards more of what we really want. And so the second stage of really embodying that every shadow contains a gift is moving into the gift frequency within the Gene Key system. So this is going to, I'm writing gift in that second level of my bullseye. And the gift frequency is known as the action plane in the Gene Key system. This is where we start to just move in those higher frequencies to serve ourselves, yes, because it has to start from ourselves. The call comes from inside the house first. And then that extends into the wider community, the person you're in relationship with, your children, your work, your clients, your family members, your community at large, so on and so forth. It is the action plane, it is movement, it is more rooted in love and service to better support the whole. And whenever you live in this gift frequency within the Gene Key system, you are naturally going to embody the Siddhic frequency. And in my little diagram here, I wrote the word Siddhi at the most outer circle of this bullseye. And again, the Siddhi represents enlightenment, atonement. It's really universal consciousness, universal love. It's the interconnectedness and unity of everything, everyone, the flowers, the fauna, the rocks, the mountains. We live in mountains in Colorado. The sea, the ocean, the hills, the valleys, the swamps, the frogs, the everyone and everything that makes up our existence of humanity and the embodiment of pure love and that consciousness aspect. And so that Siddhi is what you naturally will embody, and it is the essence that you will emanate out of you when you are living in the gift frequency in regard to the Gene Keys philosophy. And so that is the first aspect that I wanted to go into because I think that can really set the tone for the rest of the pieces to come together. And so next, let's move into David Dieda's work. And I am going to write his name on the outside data of this bullseye and move on to this next. I have separated the bullseye into 4 different quadrants. And so he is the next one we're going to meet in this next quadrant. And what I love about David Dieta is his interpretation of love and service to love is very similar to the Gene Keys in regard to the Gene Keys having the shadow, the gift, and the Siddhi. David Dieta's work also has first stage, second stage, and third phase love. And so I'm going to write first stage in the innermost ring of the bullseye. And first stage love really has to do with the self. What is in it for me? What can I get out of this? Look what they did to me. I am valid to feel this way, right? It's very blaming, it's resentful, it's self-focused, it's shadow frequency, it's lower vibration, it's selfish in a way. And selfishness in itself isn't bad. It is data, it is information. Everything outside of us is inherently neutral. It's what we do with that information that informs the meaning we place on it, which informs our actions, our beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, the way that we love another or not, and also love ourselves, of course. And so in that first stage, it can be very dividing when it comes to love because you're only thinking about yourself. However, every shadow contains a gift. So the first stage will also lend into moving into the second stage of love, which is we focused. And I'm actually going to put under first stage, I'm going to put self, and under second stage focus in my diagram, I'm going to put we focus. And so as you can see, or as you can assume, if you're just listening to this and not catching the video, that the second stage has to do with the wider collective than just ourselves. It is other focused, it is service focused, it is a higher frequency that enables you to tap into better frequency thoughts or higher frequency thoughts more helpful thoughts for not only yourself, but other people. It's in wider service to the whole. It's we focused, it's teamwork, it's coming together, it's problem solving, it's being creative, it's looking for resources and solutions. It's coming back to recognizing that we're all just humans doing our best, even if it's not always that great. It's really this aspect of like recognizing our humanity in one another and loving each other anyway, and being in higher service to love. And then finally, with that we focus, that problem solving, that coming together, that teamwork, that is doing what's best for everyone involved, you can then tap into third stage love. So the third stage love is really correlated to the Siddhi frequency, which again is that interconnectedness with everyone and everything, universal love, universal consciousness, and being in service to love in the highest expression. And so next I want to go into John Wineland. And as I'm sharing all of these things, I really want you guys to consider how these different frequencies, stages of love, and the other aspects that I'm going to continue to expand upon show up in your life and relationship. Again, these have been wildly beneficial for me to become aware of and start to integrate more into my relationship, my body, my experiences, my awareness, my coaching, all of it. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you today. So next we're going to move into John Wineland, and in the third quadrant, I've put his name on the outside. And whenever it comes to John Wineland, he was a student of David Deida. And so he is very influenced by this aspect of first stage, second stage, and third stage love, in addition to a lot of other things that we can talk about in another conversation. But with John Wineland, he follows a framework in his practice with people to help them develop more sacred intimacy. And so his first pillar doesn't necessarily start with a lower frequency kind of vibe or anything along those lines. His first pillar of his framework is actually intimacy, period. It is intimacy in this way of recognizing our humanity in one another. It's being intimate with another and understanding that they come into a relationship and a dynamic with their own set of childhood wounds, baggage, strengths, flaws, and everything in between. And so with intimacy, it's really this recognition of our humanity. And it's this aspect of recognizing that we're the same. Like we are consciousness in form. And while we do bring different perspectives and energetics and dynamics to the relationship, we are one, just like we are one with the trees and with the flora and with the fauna and with everything. We come from the same universal consciousness. And whenever we can start to recognize that wholeness and that sameness within each other, it really creates this availability to go deep with one another, to really grow your relationship safety and connection. You're seeing and accepting all of the other person. And so something that you can do to tune into the intimacy of your relationship or not is to rate yourself on a scale of 10. How revealed are you in your relationship to your partner? But really, how revealed are you to yourself? Like, are you willing to see yourself truly for the depths of your heart, for the truths of your heart, for the desires that you have, for the challenges that you face, for the fears that you're carrying with you? Like, how revealed to yourself are you? And then how revealed do you let yourself be to the other? And how revealed are they to you? It's really a great inventory practice to see where you land on that scale of 1 to 10, to see what your next tactical steps can be to go deeper, to be more revealing. Because I truly believe that each of us want to love each other well. And whenever we can recognize that, a lot of the times when there are rifts in our relationships, there are patterns that are running that are rooted in that person being like 4 years old, or 7 years old, or 9 years old, or 12. It's like the adult person is repeating a pattern that was imprinted on them at a really young age. And not everybody's aware of that. And whenever you can start to just realize that we're all just little kids looking for our love, we're all just little kids that are feeling scared, or feeling like we don't belong, or what have you, or being needy because maybe we didn't get this love from our parent growing up, or maybe we had an uncle who said a mean comment that created a nervous system imprint that we're repeating in adulthood, so on and so forth. There's so many examples that I could give, but essentially we're all just little kids looking for love. And whenever we're experiencing that shadow frequency or first stage of love, it's likely not the 43-year-old husband that you have. It's likely the 7-year-old little boy who's just trying to get his needs met, or who's just trying to get her needs met. Whichever partner you are or are in relationship with, and this isn't obviously specific to heterosexual relationships, this can be in any kind of relationship, same sex, what have you. It's just an awareness. And in order to create more of this resonant hum in your relationship, of your nervous systems being regulated between each other, of having this sense of empathy and understanding and compassion and forgiveness and acceptance of each other, this is the first step to that. It's being intimate with each other and letting your heart be expressed and being in service to each other's nervous systems. And I think that's a big thing that most people don't understand in a relationship is you're not just in relationship with the conscious human in front of you, you're in relationship with their subconscious nervous system that is running in the background 95% of their beliefs, actions, all of the things. And while that doesn't let them off the hook from being responsible for their role in the relationship or your role in the relationship, it does allow you to extend that intimacy, that acceptance, that forgiveness, that understanding, like I just mentioned before, and allows you to be more revealed, of course, to each other, but to yourself first. So really answer that call from within the house first, so that then you can share that with the other person, and ideally they can hold space with you and like listen and reflect things back and just ask questions and just grow closer in that sacred intimacy that you want so deeply. And so let's move into the second stage of John Wineland's framework. And this is devotion to love. I wrote that in my second rung of this bullseye in John Wineland's quadrant. And full transparency, this second pillar to John Wineland's work is probably the hardest. This is really where the rubber meets the road. And being in devotion to love, it really does require you to take responsibility for your role in the relationship. It requires you to go first and to regulate yourself. Say you're having a riff in your relationship, and your natural tendency would be to fight fire with fire, right? Throw daggers, do things out of spite, really just go off the handles and maybe like lose awareness of the pattern that's running. But the more that you can become aware and reveal to yourself the patterns that are running in that first stage, that first pillar of intimacy, the more that you can be in devotion to love and stay calm whenever in the past you would have flipped your lid. You can just breathe in that moment. If it means you need to take space from one another, you take space and then you come back and have another conversation. It's you attempt at repair. You validate the other person's experience. You affirm to them that you're here with them and that you love them and that you hear them and you feel them and that you see them and you want to hold them. And of course, this can go whether you're the feminine partner in the relationship with your masculine partner, vice versa, or same sex relationships, it doesn't matter. This is all energy. This is all awareness. This is all embodiment of the type of person that you want to be in your relationship, how you want to show up, how you want to give love. Devotion to love is love, loving love. It's in higher service to love itself. And that's why it's so hard, because in those lower frequencies of first stage relating and also shadow frequencies, it's really easy to stay mad. It's really easy to validate yourself and like, they did this, so it makes sense for me to be angry and to stay in that energy, but that's not what you really want. You want to grow closer with your partner. You want to work together. You want to have some depth and true conversations rather than surface level stuff and never really getting to the root cause of what's causing these issues in your relationship. You want to resolve them, and you resolve them by recognizing the wholeness of the person in front of you, of yourself, and also being in devotion to love and being in devotion to their nervous system that you are very much in relationship with, in addition to your own. It's a reciprocal thing. It's a seeing of each other, right? And that's really what's going to help you grow deeper in love and harmony so that you guys can reflect on how you're showing up in your relationship. You can refine how you're showing up in your relationship, and you can bring your best self to this dynamic so that you guys can grow together. And so that is the second pillar of John Weiland's work, devotion to love. And now we're going to get into his third pillar, which is sexual polarity. I am so excited to talk about this because I'm a very sexual person, and sexual intimacy without penetration, even just like sexual polarity in relationships, is chef's kiss. It is so important. And sexual polarity in this circumstance is not gender specific. It has to do with one party of the relationship embodying more of the feminine pole, the feminine essence and expression. So this has to do with emotions, expression, fluidity, um, like just going with the flow, just letting your heart be on your sleeve. And both parties, masculine, feminine, male, female, doesn't matter. You can be same sex, but everyone has and these energies within us, both masculine and feminine. We have to have it. Nothing exists in a vacuum. There is dichotomy and polarity in the universe across the board, and it is within us too. However, for sexual polarity to create the attraction and the magnetism that you want in your relationship, to feel safe and spontaneous and also just like deep and held and all of the things, there has to be polarity. I'm going to give a few examples in just a minute, but just know that you can both embody these things. However, for that polarity, one person embodies it more often than not. Okay. And so the feminine is expression, experience, fluidity, all of that. The masculine pole is structure, it is consciousness, it is logical thinking, it is empty, it is being a container to receive that feminine expression and embodiment. It is being able to hold space. And the masculine partners, whether again that's female or male, tend to want to fix things. They're like, oh, there's a problem, let me fix it. In this aspect of highest expression and embodiment of the divine masculine, you're not here to fix things. You're here to hold space for that feminine expression. And so I really wanted to share that because I know that it's a natural tendency for us to want to fix, but a lot of times there doesn't need to be a fix. There just needs to be support. And a question that you can ask your partner, whether you're the male or the female in your relationship, is to ask the question, do you just need some support right now of being heard and listened to, or do you need a solution? And that can really put the ball in their court to tell you what they want versus you assuming what they want or need. And so with that sexual polarity, again, one party embodies more of the feminine pole, one party embodies more of the masculine pole. And that's what creates that dynamic attraction and sexual polarity to be able to go deep with one another and really magnetize. Now, I want to give some examples of whenever the energetic balance is off so that you can start to identify more of when this happenstance might be showing up in your relationship and what you can do to create more of that polarity. Okay, so let's just go with like a standard example of the woman in the relationship is embodying more of the feminine role of that expression, the fluidity, the emotions, and the masculine partner is embodying more of the masculine pole, the structure, the logical thinking, what have you, ideally. But there becomes a rift. So the feminine is in her expression. She's coming to you with something that is heavy on her heart. She's looking for just to get this out of her body. But then say the masculine partner, instead of holding that structure, that stoicism, that containment, he gets in his feminine and he flips and starts saying, well, you did this, you did that, I do all these things. It's like you're never grateful. It's like I can never do anything wrong. That is expression meeting expression. Therefore, there's no polarity. It's sameness. And sameness can repel. And so that's just one example. Let's say it's the opposite. Let's say the male comes to the other partner, the feminine partner, and is expressing. In a highest ideal embodiment, the feminine would hold space for that masculine expression. See, again, it's just a dance in energy. It's a fluidity. It doesn't have to be the same all the time. It's just a dance in that. And so if the feminine can hold that space for the masculine to express, that's a beautiful dynamic, which creates attraction and polarity. However, if the feminine is like, what do we need to do to fix it? I can't handle your emotions right now. Blah, 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 blah. You don't hold space for me. I can't handle this, whatever. Then again, it creates sameness in that feminine partner being in her feminine essence as well. And it just creates repulsion. And so there's any kind of example, but the more that you can come into the awareness of what is the energy that I'm bringing to the situation right now, what do I need? How would I like my partner to show up for me? Then coming to that situation and seeing what happens from there. And also just having the awareness of if your partner isn't able to meet you in that opposite energy of what you need right now, share that with them. I truly believe that honest communication and reflection of what your partner is giving you that maybe isn't what you need in that moment is a learning opportunity for you both to communicate, to understand each other's needs, to give each other what you need, and so on and so forth. And so I'm just trying to think here if I want to give another example of lack of polarity because there's too much sameness. So I gave the example of two feminine energies coming in to like express and share with each other. But the same can be true for if things are too masculine as well from both partners. It's all about problem solving and being logical or compartmentalizing or not really getting to the crux of what's actually being said and the deeper energetic needs and conversation and dynamic that's going on. And so while it might not be as explosive, it can also kind of stagnate the actual progress of getting to the root cause and growing together. And so it's just really important to have the awareness of these different energies so that you can create that sexual polarity of the two different sexes, masculine and feminine, coming together. Yes, it can do with penetration and actual sexual intercourse, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Okay. So that is John Wineland. He is one of my favorites. His podcast is called the Embodied Relationship Podcast. I love it, highly recommend it. He has books and YouTube. Look him up. He's fantastic. One of my favorite people I love to tune into all the time. So the last modality and framework that I think is super important to consider when it comes to sacred intimacy and relationships is human design. And there is a butt ton of stuff that we could dive into in regard to human design. But for the sake of this conversation, and also my awareness of the biggest aspects that tend to come through in relationship dynamics that I think are a beautiful starting place, is starting with type and strategy. And so I'm going to do type and strategy in this closest section to the bullseye, type and strategy. And if you don't know what type and strategy are in human design, your type is essentially your energetic type, and it informs the way that you move throughout the world. So your body will have specific creative impulses, sensations, and capacities based on which type that you are. And in the human design system, you will notice that there are 9 energy centers or shapes that really dictate what type you are, whether they're colored in or not. We're not going to go into all of that today, but there are 5 different types in human design. I'm not going to also go into the details of each type, but I am going to label them off right now. So there are projectors, reflectors, manifestors, manifesting generators, and generators. And based on your specific type, you will have a strategy that is to help you move throughout the world in a more aligned and ideal and resonant way. If you're going against your strategy, life can be a little bit more challenging. And again, it's just trying to teach you how to make a more aligned decision that honors your type and strategy. And so for projectors, their strategy is to wait for the invitation, because projectors are here to guide the collective. They can see where things can be done more efficiently. They're really deep feelers and deep seers. However, if they share what they're seeing or feeling without an invitation, it might not land as powerfully or as clearly as it would if they were to wait for that invitation. I have podcast episodes about this on my show, The Woman Behind It All. And so if you want to learn more about that, specifically for the people I'm telling this to on my Instagram live, obviously, if you're listening to this on the podcast, then you know what my podcast is. But for those of you who are hopping on this Instagram live, The Woman Behind It All is where you can find more specific information and details about each of the 5 types and way more stuff when it comes to human design. So let's move into the reflector strategy. The reflector strategy is to wait 28 days to make big decisions. This is nuanced. All of this is nuanced. It's all energetics. It's all specific to you. However, if you find out that you're a reflector and you can reflect back on whenever maybe you were in a place of making a big decision and you rushed that decision, what were the outcomes that happened? How did things play out? And whenever you've waited and given yourself time, like, say a month to make that decision, what happened then? What changed for you? How did you feel throughout the month? Your strategy is to wait for that month cycle, because you will feel different every day. Therefore, the way that you feel about that decision might change. And so by waiting a full month, you can feel all of those feels and have all of those thoughts come through, and then come to a place of clarity on what your next step will be. And maybe you need more than a month, and that's totally fine. Take as much time as you need. But the biggest thing here as a reflector with your strategy is to not rush your decisions. Let's move into manifestors. Manifestors are here to inform and initiate. They get a creative impulse that is immediate and they want to take action on it. They're highly independent, and they want to move on their own time frame and in the own ways that they do. And with their strategy of inform then initiate, your biggest asset as a manifestor is to let the other people in your world know what you want to take action on, how you're feeling, where you want to go, what you're doing, why you're doing it. Maybe not to great detail, but the more that you can communicate, aka inform before you initiate, the least resistance that you will find with people potentially getting in your way, interrupting your flow, not understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it. They just want to be informed. You like to be informed as a manifestor, and your people like to be informed as well. So be sure to tell other people what's up as best you can. You don't have to give them a full explanation or ask for permission, but communication is key here as a manifestor to help you to stay in that creative flow and follow that creative impulse with the least resistance. So let's go into generators first. Next, with the generator, their strategy is to respond. And that will be a low belly gut sensation of either a contraction of whenever you're responding with a no, that also is immediate. It happens in the moment, it's in the now. And so that low belly response will tell you whether something's a no, or if it feels open and expansive, it will be an affirming low belly yes. And your strategy as a generator is to follow that somatic attunement as much as possible. And so that somatic attunement, following it as much as possible, is true for any type. But specifically for generators who have been conditioned in their life to bypass that body knowing and go into their head and then spin on decisions for way too long, and just really justify things or overthink things, I want to give you full-blown permission to honor your full body yes or no above all else, and see what that does for you. Okay, so next we're going to go into manifesting generators, and this is a hybrid type of both the manifestor and the generator type, and their strategy is to respond first and then inform. And so for you as a manifesting generator, also deeply attuned to that low belly somatic feeling in your gut that is an affirming yes, or an affirming no. And I also want to say to my generator types, if you're ever in this place of a maybe, let your maybes be a no, because you have in the moment right now clarity about whether you have the energy to go after something or the capacity to do something or not. And so that's not to say that you might change your mind in the future, but for now, let your maybes be a no and let your no be a no and stop, period. And your yeses, follow that all day, baby. Follow your bliss, follow your joy, follow the expansion. So, manifesting generators, you get that low belly attunement first, and then you get to inform and initiate because you're that hybrid type. And so, then after you have something that you are responding to from your environment, then tell people what you're up to, share about it. That can really support you in being able to move fast like you're meant to, being able to create shortcuts, be efficient with energy, really be trailblazers for the collective. So that is how the types and strategies are meant to be integrated into our lives and relationships based on your human design. Okay. And so the next aspect of the human design that I think is vitally important to consider is your authority. And your authority is going in the second rung of this bullseye under the human design quadrant. And this has to do with your inner GPS, your decision making process. And so following your type and strategy is how you're meant to move throughout the world. Yet your authority is like a deeper layer to that somatic attunement and to that awareness of what actually is in alignment for you or not. And so it's providing more clarity for you based on what your inner authority is. And I'm not going to go through all of the authorities. I have a podcast episode on that, and I would love for you to check that out. But say you're an emotional authority as a generator, you're an emotional generator. You are meant to ride that emotional wave first as you have that somatic attunement to that low belly yes or no. And with that emotional wave, you're not going to know right off the bat. You may, but you might not. And so as you're making decisions and moving throughout the world, deepening that aspect to your alignment, resonance, and really just what's the word I was looking for? Alignment, resonance. There was something else. I guess it was the somatic attunement aspect. And so let's go into like splenic authority for an example. Again, I'm kind of hopping around. I'm not going through all of them, but splenic authority is about having the instinctual knowing in the now. It is similar to the sacral in regard to it is in the moment a yes or a no, but you might not know why. The spleen is like a whisper. It speaks once, and it's really here to guide you towards what will make you healthy, happy, and safe, because it is the oldest awareness center in the body, the spleen is, and it's really here to protect you from danger. And so tuning into your inner authority as a splenic projector or manifester will really support you in being able to know whether something is healthy, happy, and safe for you. Like, say you are about to go down this road and something within you, your spleen, is saying, don't go down that road. And you don't know why, because it's just this intuitive awareness that you have. And so you just listen to it. This is you following your authority. You listen to it and you take a different road, and then you come to find out there was a really bad wreck on that road, like as you were supposed to be going through there. And so that's kind of how the spleen works. It speaks once, it whispers, it's this deep instinctual awareness that's telling you to do something or not to do something. And it's up to you to follow that deep somatic awareness and attunement. And usually clarity comes afterwards. And so that's a gist with authority. I am going to continue on, but please do go back and listen to the podcast episode that I have about inner authorities. I don't have the podcast number off the top of my head. I realize I could have done that research before this episode, but here we are. You can just search for it in the toolbar of my podcast page. So the last aspect of human design that I think is really important to consider in your relationships, in your own awareness of yourself, and how you relate to your partners or your kids is profile. And I'm putting this in the last rung of the human design quadrant. And the profile are the numbers that look like a fraction in front of your type. And so, for example, I'm a 1-3 self-projected projector. So my profile is 1-3. My fiance, he's a 2-4 generator. And maybe you might be a 6-2 or a 6-3 or a 5-2. It doesn't matter. But just know that all of the 5 different profile lines have a different archetype and characteristics that they live into. And so we'll do a high level overview of all 6 lines. But again, I have podcast episodes on this that you can reflect back to and get more granular information about each of the 6 lines. So let's start with the first line. The first line has to do with research, foundational needs. They're here to become masters of whatever they're really interested in. They're here to go deep, and they're here to really build a strong foundation to grow on and build upon, not only for themselves and their unique interests, but also for the relationship. And how that ripples out into the relationship is, if you are a first line in your relationship or your partner is, it's really important to consider that safety is important above all else. And really, they like to research, they like to go deep. Like I said before, they feel safe with more knowledge and resources. And if you are that person in your relationship, really embrace that aspect about yourself. You really provide a strong foundation to continue to build upon for you and your partner. And that is something to be embraced and loved about yourself. The shadow of the first line is that you can feel like you don't have enough information or resources or knowledge to move forward. And I really want to invite you to take action, especially as a fellow first line. We can really get stuck in analysis paralysis or feeling like we're not ready, but do take action, because that's how you realize, one, how much information and knowledge that you actually do have. And you only have to be a little bit ahead of somebody else to be able to share what you know, to be able to serve them and support them. And so this can be your intimate partner. This can be your kiddos. This can be the work that you do in the world. It doesn't matter, but be brave, not perfect, and go ahead and share what you do know so that you can see where you're at and what you get to keep exploring and what you can really pat yourself on the back for. When it comes to the second line, I was just debating on if I wanted to say anything else about the first line, but let's go ahead and move into the second line. The second line is rooted in radical self-expression. They are here to be in their own energy, be in their own environment. This is the most introverted out of all of the lines. They really like to do things their way. They're very passionate, and they're also known as the natural. So my fiance is a second line, and he is very natural at the things that he does. He can fix anything, even if whether he knows something about it or not, like it just comes really natural to him. Of course, there's a learning curve for everybody, and like, yeah, he has to do some research, but he doesn't have to try as hard as me. Let's just say that. And I see this with a lot of second lines. I have a lot of second lines in my life, and they're just naturals. They love their self-expression. It's one of their highest values. They're very passionate. Whenever they get talking about the things that they love, or whenever they're doing the things that they love, they're kind of like a dancer getting lost in the dance and the flow of it all. And they really like to be in their own energy. As I mentioned before, the aspect of the second line, it is the most introverted of all the lines. And so they can tend to really want to just stay inside the house and not really go out, kind of hermit in there. That is also a name that they're known by, is the hermit. And they need to be called out of the house. They need to be given words of affirmation and recognition on what makes them great. I am constantly telling my second line fiance, I just love it when you do this. You're so good at this. I just appreciate you so much for doing this. Like, I am showering him with words of affirmation and love and affection. One, just because that's my natural love language, but two, because I know that he thrives when being recognized and seen. And if you are a second line, I'm sure that you're shaking your head and nodding along with me right now. And if you have a second line partner, or especially a kiddo, then shower them with that love, call them out of the house, recognize them for the gifts and the strengths that they have. And also, by recognizing them and their strengths and their gift, you can create more of that intimacy, right? That wholeness, that recognition of self and divinity, and can really support them in softening their heart, opening up more to you, being more revealed. And that can allow you guys to go deeper, not only in the good stuff of the celebrations of things that you love about them and things that are going right or that they do well, but it also opens up this door for you guys to talk about the things that maybe aren't going so well, or that you don't super love about them, or opportunities for growth and expansion and depth and connection in your relationship, which ultimately leads me to safety. All of this is coming you back home, bringing you back home to safety in your relationship. And that's really what all of this is built upon. It has to be foundational safeties. And maybe this is me being a first line coming through here, but everything comes back to safety. And the more that you can lay these golden bricks of safety with you and your partner, the stronger your relationship will be. Okay. So let's go into the third line real quick. The third line is all about experience. It's all about interaction with the world. It's all about trial and error, getting your hands dirty, figuring it out the hard way, failure, recommitment. Um, it's the experiential line. It's the changer. This line will have a lot more colorfulness to their life. They will have a lot of change and adaptation, growing pains, failing forward. And with all of this trial and error process, failing forward, the shadow of the third line can be rooted in shame and really feel bad about themselves for how many times you've changed or pivoted or failed forward or messed up and had to try again or started something and then had to rebuild it or whatever. And so if you're a third line like me, I'm a 1-3 profile, so that third line aspect is very familiar to me. And if you're a third line, I just really want to invite you that this is a way that you are developing your wisdom and figuring out what works and what doesn't to share with others and to help yourself grow and evolve to be able to just know what works and what doesn't and be wise. Again, like that's basically what it all comes down to is growing as a human, expanding your wisdom, your knowledge, and then also being able to share that with others so that they don't make the same mistakes you do. And if you have a third line in your profile, or if your partner has a third line in their profile, just know that life might not be super easy all the time or simple. There might be a lot of change and adaptation, or potentially in the shadow, it can feel like chaos. But I really want to have you open up to this perspective that life isn't chaotic, it's colorful. It's teaching me everything that I want and need to know, and it's all for you. And to love yourself through humor and really a lightheartedness rather than that shame and judgment, because that's only going to make that process of growth and gaining wisdom and sharing your expertise a lot more challenging. And again, I say this with love because I'm also a third line. So we're going to move into the fourth line. The fourth line is rooted in relationships, love, passion, being a networker, a connector. Your net work is your net worth, is that saying, and that is true and true for the fourth line. And the fourth lines really live with their heart on their sleeve, and they're here to bridge people. They're here to bridge both sides of the brain and hemispheres and love and sameness and harmony and resonance, and also to bridge people and relationships. And fourth lines really rely on a strong network of trusted people, maybe not a big, strong network of trusted people, but definitely some really anchoring relationships in their lives that help them feel safe and allow them to be vulnerable and share their heart on their sleeves. And they want to go deep. They want to share. They want to connect. They want to see you, and they want to see themselves. And so that comes back to safety. Can't get away from it. We'll never stop talking about it. It comes back to safety. And so if you or your partner are fourth line, really emphasize this aspect and embrace it, that you have a huge heart or they have a huge heart and they want to love. And I think every partner wants to love each other well. And I think whenever we get in our shadow states, it just impedes that process. And the shadow state of the fourth line is hanging on to relationships or experiences or environments that aren't aligned with who they truly want to be in the direction that they want to go, out of fear of being alone, being not belonging, betrayal potentially, losing your tribe. It's very tribal in nature. And so if you're a fourth line, really take an inventory of the relationships, experiences, environments that you're engaging in, and see how it aligns with who you truly want to be in the direction that you want to go, and your ability to be vulnerable and be yourself and be your ushy gushy heart centered, loving self that you are. And if you have this fear of losing your community, That is valid. That is normal. That is okay. But just know that whenever you can let go of relationships, experiences, environments that aren't aligned with who you want to be and where you want to go, you're creating space for more of those aligned relationships, experiences, and environments to find you and be attracted in. Okay. So the fifth line, this is very practical in nature. They are the fixers, the problem solvers in the world. They're natural leaders. They live in this projection field to where they project their innate leadership onto the collective. They can't help but do that because it's just who they are. And people will project onto them their ability or their desire for the fifth line to answer their questions, solve their problems, be their scapegoat potentially. And so, as a fifth line, boundaries are huge, and boundaries are also the dilemma of the fifth line because as this person who's a natural leader and can fix things and see things practically and offer solutions easily, it's like it's just easy for them. You can get yourself into a compromising position of taking on too much or answering too many questions that aren't yours or trying to solve too many problems that aren't yours. And so boundaries are huge for the fifth line. And so this is true for you if you are a fifth line. And this is also something to support your partner with if they're a fifth line. If you see that they easily extend themselves because they want to help other people so deeply, but it's costing them their health, their vitality, depth in your relationship, what have you, have that conversation, be supportive, be aware of this pattern, and love your fifth line into having better boundaries and creating more spaciousness for themselves so that they can be that leader that they want to be without compromising their energy and their time and potentially your relationship as well. And obviously, all of that pertains to you if you are the fifth line in your relationship. And lastly, we're going to get to the sixth line. And the sixth line is known as the role model or the mentor. They have three distinct life phases in which the first phase, they're really living as a third line. They're very much in that trial and error process, failing forward, making mistakes, pivoting, adjusting, adapting, having a colorful life. And then once they have their first Saturn return between ages 28 to 32, then they do what is known as going on the roof. And going on the roof means that you start to step into your profile line as a sixth line versus that third line. And it's where you're starting to become more refined with your energy and reflect on the lessons that you have learned throughout your first phase of life and really starting to prune your life of the things that aren't aligned with who you want to be and where you want to go. And so life can get a little bit more quality versus quantity. It can get more refined. It can get more lonely potentially because you're going more within and you're reflecting on who you want to be moving forward. And so the third phase comes into your awareness or your process around age 50. And again, this is all nuance. This is all energetics. This is all awareness. But this is how the sixth line generally tends to work in regard to the human design, education, information, resources. And around age 50, you start to fully step into this role model and mentor archetype. And it's really where you've done all the pruning, all the refining, all the awareness work to really serve the collective as this visionary leader that you're meant to be. The fifth line is here to be more of like the boots on the ground, kind of help people, lead people in that way, problem solve, right? Be in the mix of it. But as a sixth line on the roof, you're here to be the visionary, to see the big picture, to provide the structures and the systems for you to hand the manual off to other people to then go do themselves. You're the role model, the mentor. You're the teacher. So you explain, you don't do for them. And so the shadow of the sixth line can really be this aspect of like feeling like you're behind or not on time, and the sense of shame that you should be farther along, or you're not doing a good enough job, or you're slow to develop, da 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 da. And so really love yourself into this aspect of patience. Patience is the signature of the sixth line, essentially. Is be patient with your process, be patient with your unfolding. You're going to understand and connect the dots of your life experiences and relationships and environments over time. And of course, that in the moment awareness is there for you too, but you might see things a little bit more clearly in time. So do be patient. And so that's a wrap up of the profile lines in the human design system. So that also concludes our conversation today. I have filled in all of the bullet points of my bullseye here, going over all of the four major influences and modalities that have really shaped me to be the woman that I am, the mom that I am, the partner that I am, the coach that I am, the friend that I am, the influence and the collective that I am. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm really grateful for all of the teachers that have come into my life at the perfect time, because you know that saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so I hope you got a lot of great value out of this live and out of this podcast today. Please DM me with any questions that you have, any insights or ahas that you took away from our conversation today. And I hope that this brings you greater awareness of what the energy is that you are operating in your relationships and everyday life more frequently, to help you create more safety, depth, and connection with yourself and with the most important people in your life. So that is day one of the 30-day challenge. Not all of the conversations that we're having are going to be this long by any means, but I had a lot to cover today to really set the foundation in moving forward. I love you all so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll catch you again.
I hope this episode reminded you that life and love are supposed to feel safe and expansive, and gave you clarity on the next right step you can take in your relationship. If so, please take 30 seconds to leave a review. Each one helps get this content into the ears and hearts of women just like you. I'm excited to hang out again soon, having more conversations on how to create the relationships you've always dreamed of. Keep following what feels expansive, babe. You're so worthy of it all.